All right, guys, you won't believe what just unfolded on one of America's most watched daytime talk shows. The hosts of The View, known for their frank discussions and occasional heated debates, have outdone themselves with a monumental clash. This latest episode isn't just full of their usual disagreements. It's quite possibly the fiercest battle of opinions we've ever seen between them.
Facts. We do
no,
it
but
every day.
A lot of this can be viewpoints where somebody could say, well, this is my viewpoint on it. And there were moderating things around language you used around certain issues. But to the point I was saying, community notes actually work. They have to be cited to sources. My issue is the algorithms. These tech companies are run by billionaires. They're completely unaccountable. Congress hasn't regulated tech in over 30 years. And they can push what you're seeing more of. They can hold back what you're not seeing. And that, to me, is the biggest issue. But we can complain about it all we want. We need to tell Congress that they need to also get involved.
Yeah, they absolutely do. The misinformation, the world...
And it all boils down to something as fundamental as free speech.
Information and disinformation is the most severe short-term threat globally. So by removing these fact checkers, I understand the concern was, and Joy, this might answer your question, there were some conservative viewpoints that were being taken down. So these fact-checking industries started right in 2016 when President Trump was elected the first time. Yeah, it would be something like when there were debates on masks or shutdowns, they were taking these things off of the site, which as someone who could have debated that, these people were saying you're taking our content off of this site. But there's a difference between Alex.
Is that allegedly or is that factual?
No, there's
their conversation. Yeah, there are reports, there are things they took off. But the bigger point here is there's a difference between Alex Jones spewing hate, disgusting, false, and having a difference of opinion. But either way, I'd rather have them get it wrong occasionally with a screen door between free speech and say anything you want. So I'm frustrated that they did it.
So, here's the scoop. Social media giant Facebook recently announced a significant shift in how it handles its platform. They're looking to rebrand as a hub for free speech, doing away with some of their content restrictions. This controversial move has ignited debates far and wide, but on The View, it created a firestorm. You know, we've watched the hosts bicker before, but this was different. It was explosive. It started off with a typical discussion about how Facebook's new policy could potentially let misinformation and harmful content run rampant. As usual, opinions split. Some believe that fact-checking should remain to prevent chaos on the platform, while others argued for the absolute freedom to express one's thoughts, regardless of how erroneous or nearly offensive those thoughts might be.
We're focusing on hate speech, but some of the beginning things they did were Facebook removed all content that said COVID was a man-made disease. There was a group of people claiming it was, and they were considered off limits. Now it's debatable, and they released that. So my point is, there's a difference between the obvious awful stuff you're talking about, but it's shutting down conversations, which that's the point.
And again, some things are black and white because you don't have all the facts.
Yes, but not everything is black or white. And the things that we know are black and white are the things that we can say, you know what? You don't need to do this because we've decided collectively as a group of human beings that we're going to respect, because they always talk about respect. If you're going to respect people, there are certain things I want you to say. If you run the thing, say, I'm not going to accept that. Or for all of the folks who are applauding, you can also not get on Meta.
Well, that's the freedom, that's the choice. Rather than saying we have to shut down.
And then things got intense. Sunny Hostin and Whoopi Goldberg took the side of the argument, cautioning against the perils of unrestricted speech, while Alyssa Farah Griffin surprisingly advocated for the kind of broad free speech protections that Facebook's move supports.
But yeah, no, I mean, I'm talking about the Hunter Biden laptop tougher for me to say, like what specific retribution or justice should happen to anyone who is involved in these things. But I think your point about let's make sure this doesn't happen again is the one that I'm more focused on. Right? Because it's the thing that I reflect on my journey on all this, which is like, okay, yeah, so we didn't take down the stuff that was true, but we did generally defer to the government on some of these policies that in retrospect I probably wouldn't, knowing what I know now. And I just think that's sort of the journey that we've been on. Is like, okay, we start the thing focused on free expression, go through some like pretty crazy times in the world, get it pressure tested, see where we basically ended up doing stuff that led to a slippery slope that we weren't happy with the conclusion, and try to
Griffin stated passionately, "I tend to be a free speech absolutist, urging that as long as speech doesn't directly harm others, it should be allowed." Her viewpoint was met with disbelief and challenges by her fellow hosts. Imagine the scene. Each host trying to make their voice heard over the others in what quickly descended into chaos, with accusations and frustrations flying back and forth. Whoopi asserted her opinion with trademark decisiveness, suggesting that allowing offensive language goes against her belief in respect and civility. To be honest, it seemed like none of them could finish a sentence without being cut off, as they delved into who should have the say over fact-checking. Joy Behar and Sarah Haynes chimed in with their perspectives, escalating it even further.
I'm sorry. If being woke is a bad thing, that means that the fact that I care about you, regardless of what you say or who you are, I want to make sure your family is as well off as mine is. That's too woke. It's too woke for me to say to you, hey, listen, if your kids, you don't want your kids reading this, maybe the best thing to do is let's go to the library together and I'll tell the librarian what I don't mind my kids reading, and then you can tell the librarian what you don't want your kids to read. That's too woke.
Behar referred to the famous alternative facts comment by Kellyanne Conway during the Trump administration as a turning point for how facts are perceived in politics. Well, it got even more intriguing with Sunny Hostin, who tends to mix legal expertise into her arguments, pointing out that some forms of speech, those categorized as inciting violence, may not be protected under the First Amendment. This appeared to be a call for balance, a plea for comprehension amid the tempest of opinions. You might be wondering what exactly happened here to cause such a stir, so let me lay it out for you. Basically, the catalyst was Facebook's decision to change how they handle speech on their platform. They are reportedly moving toward fewer restrictions and will allow more discussion and debate on divisive topics like gender and immigration, which previously might have been more strictly moderated. This change will also include removal of some forms of fact-checking that many argue were politically biased. Sunny Hostin voiced concerns that without third-party fact-checkers, we might see an increase in misinformation. Many hosts pointed to times when Facebook and other social platforms suppressed stories that didn't fit agreed narratives, such as initial COVID-19 theories or the infamous Hunter Biden laptop incident. Facebook themselves have admitted to suppressing certain stories, which has tainted public's trust in what the platform deems as truth or misinformation. Right. About those fact-checkers, Alyssa pointedly remarked that opinions can be perceived differently, and having stringent checks dampens the openness of dialogue on the platform. Alyssa passionately argued that speech, even if flawed, should be viewed as individuals' rights, and the platform should not silence voices at the government's behest. As the conversation progressed, things didn't simmer down. Instead, voices rose, tempers flared, and the arguments became less about policy and more about personal liberties and what each of them believed free speech should entail. Yeah, it was intense and super gripping to watch. Then there was a plot twist. The hosts reflected on what it means to have respectful dialogue. Joy Behar mentioned, almost nostalgically, times when comedy and satire were a bit more unrestrained and suggested that some societal sensitivity could be deemed as too far. That comment triggered Whoopi more, whose experience in comedy herself often pointed out where those lines should be drawn. You know, it seems that Sunny Hostin herself had additional reasons to be careful with these discussions. Recent revelations made by her on The View led to allegations against her husband for insurance fraud, adding a personal stake to how speech can result in real-world consequences. It's a tangle, isn't it? All right, amidst this commotion, Alyssa Farah Griffin stood her ground, advocating the marketplace for ideas should have variety, with good thoughts prevail over the bad through dialogues, not supervision. The enduring question is, how does one preserve both safety and freedom in speech, keeping platforms accountable, yet free? So, what do you make of it? Is Facebook's move revolutionary for free speech, or does it pose new challenges we're not ready to face? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation is far from over. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for more hot topics like this.